Today, I wanted to delve into a topic that resonated deeply with all of us in the corporate world. It's a subject that I noticed being discussed widely on LinkedIn, and that is organizational culture. Far from being just another buzzword in the business world, organizational culture is the invisible yet powerful force that defines the identity and the experience of a workplace. It influences how team collaborates, how decisions are being made, and how ultimately successful organizations can be created. Understanding and nurturing culture isn't just an important part. It's essential for fostering a healthy and thriving workplace. So let's address a pivotal question. What exactly is an organizational culture and why does it matter even? To delve deeper into this fascinating topic, I had the privilege of speaking with Harish Kumar, co-author of the thought-provoking book, Hope is Not a Strategy. In this episode, we will explore the transformative framework he and his co-author created, the DRF, the Dilemma's Resolution Framework. Today, we'll uncover the imperative of deliberate cultural building and break down this step by step process of shaping a thriving organization. And if you're a founder, an HR leader, or in a role of a chief people officer, organizational development manager, or any capacity where building a healthy workplace culture matters, this episode is tailor made for you. Don't miss out on these valuable insights. Be sure to subscribe to the Collaborative Canvas podcast on the YouTube and Spotify to stay updated on the conversation that inspire changes and elevate your leadership. And don't forget to hit that bell icon after subscribing. It ensures you get notified every time a new episode of the Collaborative Canvas podcast drops, so you never miss out on insights and story and that inspire you and transform you. So let's deep dive again with Harish. Welcome, Harish.
Thanks, Ankesh. Privileged to be on this show. Yes, looking forward to speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Harish. So I read the book, and thank you for sending the book to me. It was definitely, something which is more of an eye opener for me. There are a lot of things which I really wanted to begin with. As I, in my introduction, I mentioned that, there is an imperative of deliberate cultural building. It's definitely imperative. But before we dive into this conversation, just a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I did my MBA from MDI Gurgaon, worked in product and services companies in the tech space. Started my own startup in 2010. It was an online book library service. 2014, I started another company called Choose to Think, where we've been helping companies build a culture of innovation, entrepreneurship. And in 2022, I started Aligned by Design with my co-founder, co-author of the book, and life partner, Sirisha Bhamidipati. And we've been working with leaders in trying to articulate the kind of company culture they want to build. And a big part of that is, aligning the leaders on and bridging the so-called think, say, do gap in organizations.
I think that's very rightly mentioned. I mean, I think it is all about how you see your organization. What we've been talking about, it starts from top to bottom. So if I am inculcating the right knowledge, if I'm creating a better culture, it is on the onus is on me. I cannot just ask anybody and come and create some cultures to it. So the first important element that the book mentioned was the imperative, the deliberate cultural building. What is so crucial for organizations today, and what happens when the culture is left to evolve organically?
Yeah, that's a very nice question, Ankesh. So just stepping one step back, right? I mean, how do you define culture? And there are a lot of definitions out there, both academic and in the colloquial world. We define culture as the way people behave when nobody is watching. We think that's the simplest way of defining culture. Now, what happens is every organization, every team has a culture of its own, right? You can think of this as the difference between, say, a forest and a garden, right? What happens in a forest? There's nobody who's actually tending to it. Plants and trees and grass and everything, weeds, everything grows on its own, right? It's a natural progression. That's what happens in any team. Now, what you want to do in an organization is you want to be more deliberate. That is, you want to build a garden, right? So what do you do in a garden? You're very clear and particular about this is where I'll have my flowering plants. I will remove the weeds. This is where I'll probably have my fruits. This is where I'll have decorative plants and all of that. That's the difference between a forest and a garden, and why you need to be deliberate about building a company culture, because the culture is going to happen, right? It's not that because you've not done anything, there's no culture of the company. No, company will have its own culture. Now, what you need to do is you need to be deliberate about amplifying the aspects of the culture that are good for you and weeding out stuff that is not so good for you, because you will end up behaving in certain ways which are both detrimental and positive for the company.
I think let's deep dive into specifics, step by step process as to, how this purpose is being defined, how this identity is being defined. And I wanted to give you an example here. And it's a very brief example. So what exactly happened? I was standing outside of my organization, and then my office is basically in a co-working space. So I was hearing a couple of folks talking about how, the bitchy environment is, how people are like struggling because one has been working hard, other one is not, and these are so many cases that you generally hear out. So let's define it again, step by step, as to what is that purpose that organizations should lead with, and how they can actually identify to mitigate these minor issues even.
Right. Yeah. Like you rightly said, Ankesh, again, these are minor issues, right? But these become major for individuals who are affected. For them, it's really big. It's overpowering their entire life, their world, and everything is dominated by these so-called small things. And the reason why they are so-called small, in our opinion, but so big for them, is that there is no overarching, reason why they want to actually be part of that organization, right? If it's something very transactional, that yeah, I'm going to get my salary and I'm just doing this for the next 3 months, 6 months till I find a better job, right? It's always going to be at a very transactional thing. I'm giving you some time and you're going to give me some money, and in that time I'm just doing some work, right? But you don't do that when you are really invested in a hobby that you are pursuing, right? Where there is not even a money that exchange that is happening. But you are really interested in giving time outside of your work. If you are recording podcasts like these, right? That is something which you are really interested in. So you're going to spend time. You're going to read a 600-page book to make sure you have great questions for me and all of that, right? You don't feel the pain of it. Why is that? Because you are invested in that. And that's what you need in an organization when you try to identify or articulate its purpose. Why does it exist? So if my team members are not invested in the purpose of the organization, no, where am I headed? What is this big thing that I'm trying to accomplish? Then you're going to keep worrying about all these transactional pains that are going to happen in every journey, right? No journey is not going to have the pains. But if you are invested in the purpose, if you are clear that this is why I'm doing this, then you take those pains in a more magnanimous way, saying, "Oh no, there's a larger purpose that I'm going after, and I'm okay to sort of tolerate this pain or take this pain." If that purpose doesn't exist, then your focus is not long. Your focus is very medium and immediate term, and then you're wondering, "Oh, this is so painful for me. This person is not talking properly to me." All those things come in.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very great example that you mentioned. Not mine, of course. I read the book because I really wanted to be, upskilled to ask those questions. But the
Sure.
fact
Yes.
is, when it comes to a smaller organization, say like 5, 10 people, it is good. CEOs of the company can actually talk about what is that I started this company for, what am I actually solving, and how you become the part of that. But point is, when it comes to larger organizations. So I remember there's a company who used to post mission and vision statement onto the dashboard of the employees, probably on the desk as well. probably they might be reading it, they might not, they're not even looking into it. They come for a 9 to 6 job and then they go. Does that
Right.
solve the purpose of even defining the purpose at the first class? HR does rounds, induction rounds, and during induction round they only talk about, this is the why this organization stands. But there's still something missing. Why people are not aligning to it? They just for 9 to 6 job and then crave that, I am doing this much, he's not doing that much, and I still am not getting a promotion. So I think somewhere down the line starts from the beginning of, how you're bringing up the people on board and start defining that process. So what is that element which is missing? And I think something that you have clearly defined in your DRF process. So let's take that first step, defining the purpose and, desired identity of an organization, because that's where the game starts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said again, Ankesh, the challenge with these organizations which will put up a mission and vision statement on everybody's screens and all of that is a lot of times it is very far from reality, right? What you're doing is very different. A software engineer or somebody doing sales on the field doesn't understand how what I'm doing today contributes to that purpose that I'm talking about, or contributes to that vision and mission that I have for the next 3-5 years. And that's where then this distance comes between the organization and me, which is why what we always try to tell founders is to bridge this think, say, do gap. What the founders are thinking, what the leaders are saying, and what is happening on the ground. There's usually a big gap between these three, right? The lesser the gap, I will not say the gap will be zero. The lesser the gap, the better it is for everyone. Because in the end, when you're talking about alignment, see, I'm not saying you agree. I'm saying you get aligned. It is like, how you are rowing a boat, or how there is this orchestra where there's one conductor. The conductor is not playing anything, right? But the conductor is the glue who brings all the individuals together, right? Somebody is playing the piano, somebody is playing the saxophone, somebody is playing some drums and all of that. They all need to understand what they bring to the table and how it fits into the larger picture. If you do that, that's when the mission and vision statement that you're putting up on my screen, I will actually relate to it. If I don't relate to it, it is and usually what happens is this is being created in isolation somewhere, sitting in the ivory tower, right? So it is all nice sounding bombastic words using all the buzzwords that you can think of. It sounds cool because this is being drafted by 30, 40, 50-year-old MBAs who are talking business, but not rooted in reality, right? Which is why communication becomes such a big part of all these things, because nobody understands what creating shareholder value means, right? Or stakeholder management. These are abstract words in people's mind. So I cannot relate to it. I will never be able to emotionally connect to it. You will have to explain that to me. So the onus of that communication is on the top leadership to make it understandable. And what works in different organizations is very unique, right? What will work in an organization is not the same thing that is going to work for someone else. For a company which is, say, part of a private equity funded company, words like stakeholder management and shareholder value may make sense, and because they're used to that. But in a different company, you are a D2C brand, or you're doing a Martech company, they are not going to understand those kind of things. So you need to understand the language that your team understands, what resonates with them, and articulate your purpose, your vision and mission statement in those words.
And I think that's again very good example. So considering that, let's not even take Martech. Let's take just a general organization, irrespective of any industry.
Right.
There are multiple,
Yeah.
teams within it. There's a marketing department, there's a sales department, and as you mentioned that, sales team generally step out. They don't step. They are not always in, but at the same time, they're the first forefronters of the organization which are stepping out to talk to the clients. And if that purpose is not given well out to them, it defies the entire organization, standing and establishment. So considering that there are multiple, departments, there are different departments, should not the purpose be defined in such a way that every department takes it the way it should be for their own requirements? It should not be, so for example, I wanted to talk to my marketing team and tell them that this is how I promote my organization. These are certain steps that I promote my organization. For sales, I go and give them a specific sales performer that this is how you have to approach the client, talking the same words. I think one thing which you mentioned about communication, that's pretty evident, but it is different for different organizations, and it is different within organizations to different departments, I believe. So when I read this DRF, it addresses the critical dilemmas like organizational structure, the decision making, and collaboration and leadership overall. Can we take it a step by step process? Because you gave a very good example on the musical band journey as well, but can you define each of them and let our audience also understand how this framework actually works in every single department of an organization?
Right. Yeah. So again, if you go back to the term that I used, right? Think, say, do, gap, right? So the dilemmas resolution framework essentially helps us understand how people are thinking, right? So when we say culture is how people behave when nobody is watching, if that is how you define culture, then values are the drivers of those behaviors, right? And there is a reason why different people behave in a certain way, both at the individual level as well as at the org or as a team level, right? There are some things that have fashioned the way you think right from when you were a kid. Your family, your school, your friends, your college, the kind of content that you have watched over the years, they've all shaped your thinking as an individual, right? That is how you behave. Now, what happens is when you come together as a group, there are certain norms that the group sort of accepts, right? Some are stated, some are unstated. Nobody has written down some things, but yeah, Harish behaves like this, so I should probably, be in sync with him. And I think, yeah, this is what is important for Ankesh. So, this is how I'm expected to behave, right? It's not stated anywhere, but, we sort of get that, right? Now, what happens is when a lot of companies, when they are coming up with this purpose and values and all of that, it is seen in isolation, right? It's like the ideal utopic NTP conditions, normal temperature and pressure conditions, right? But that is not how you operate in the real world. Which is why what we do is we actually, when we are talking to founders and leaders, we present these dilemmas. And the whole point of a dilemma is when there is a choice between a good and a bad option, nobody's going to take the bad option, right? Everyone takes the good option. There is a dilemma when there are two equal options, right? At one point, the one option A sounds right. At another point, option B sounds right. So there's nothing wrong with either of them. That's when it's a dilemma. Otherwise, it's a straightforward choice. I would say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens is a lot of times people want the best of both. I want this as well as that, right? I want speed as well as I want high quality. Now, sometimes these come at the cost of the other, right? So if you want to know something very quickly, maybe the quality is not going to be that great. If you're going to spend a lot of time on, giving out a high quality output, it's going to take time. So it's not going to be fast, right? If I just give you this question, you say, no, I want it high quality as well as I want it as of yesterday, right? But that's not how real life works. So what happens is you optimize for one of the two, right? And what we try to understand is, given different kinds of situations, how do you think? What governs your thinking? When do you say, I want to do this fast? When do you say, I want to, do a high quality output, right? That helps us understand that as a group, how do they think? Because that is what, drives your values. And if you don't come up with these values in such, real world scenarios, you're going to come up with values like collaboration, honesty, integrity, respect, and all, which is great. Nobody's ever going to say, no, I don't want to have respect as my value. Nobody's ever going to say, I don't want people to collaborate, right? But what does that really contribute? You don't, you don't make it real, right? And that's the challenge. So the whole point of dilemmas resolution framework is present these dilemmas and try to understand how people think so that you can actually come up with values which are more real.
I think related to this, I worked for like 7 different organizations. They have their own values, and most of those values, I still remember, like integrity, quality, communication. These are certain values that every other organization possess. I think similarly, there's something which is definite a definition for every organization to define a certain value. And again, I'll take you to this creating a cultural manifesto that you mentioned, and that's how you actually create those values and inculcate the purpose of having an organization into the life.
Right.
This cultural manifestation actually is a very good way of how a organization can do a transformative approach from what they started to where they wanted to head to. Can you share, how organizations can align their teams around this document and what exactly the role that drives this consistency?
Right. Yeah. So there are two documents that we talk about. One is called a culture manifesto, which is like a short summary of the purpose and the values. This is usually outward facing, right? This is like the selling pitch that you have for others outside the world to become part of your journey. Why should they be part of this? And a culture handbook is a more expanded document which contains everything that the culture manifesto has, including examples, right? So when I say communication, I want to optimize for communication. So what does communication really mean in my world, right? That I will over communicate, right? I'm just giving you an example, right? I'm going to build a written communication organization. So everything that we speak should actually be documented because I want to make sure there are no gaps in knowledge and understanding. That is what is important for me. What helps people understand this and actually implement this in real life is if you can give stories, right? If you can give me examples of what this over communication really means, right? So over communication only with clients, over communication between teams, over communication among the same team. What are we talking about? And what is it not? So that's what we call it an anti-story, right? So over communication does not mean that I confuse the client with so much of information that he's wondering, oh, what are these guys going to actually deliver, right? So there should be again a story about what it is not as well. So once you have those kind of examples that are again real and concrete, then it's much easier for me to actually behave in those ways. If not, it's going to be at a very high level where I'll say communication. Yes, I should communicate. I should communicate promptly. But what does that promptly mean, right? I don't understand it. If I don't understand it, I'm not going to behave in that way. Then those things remain on paper, all sounding great. Nobody is going to say, no, I should not do this, but nothing sort of happens on the ground. Yeah. So, we keep talking about examples to actually bring this to life, right? And again, that's a great question, Ankesh. So one typical example that I will give is bringing a culture of innovation, right? Now, innovation, you may want to differentiate between different kinds of innovation. One is that I'm looking for a radical, transformative innovation, new product in the market every year. I bring out a feature which is like the first in the industry or something like that. That is really transformative. Whereas there is another definition of innovation which will say that I want continuous improvement. I want to do something different, better every day in every process that I run in the organization. So first, you need to be clear about what is it that you mean when you say the word innovation, because different people will have different ideas of innovation. But this is still the outcome that you are looking at. What are the behaviors that will get you to innovation? First is you have to look at, are you actually introducing new ideas to people, right? For them to think about. Are you having a culture of people reading about, new things that are happening, not just in your industry, but in other industries as well. How are those new ideas coming into, the consciousness? Is it because you invite a guest speaker to talk in your organization? You know that somebody in the company does something differently. Are you putting the spotlight on that person? When somebody tries out something, what is your response? Are you saying the first thing that you are, asking is it working? Or are you appreciating the fact that that person is actually trying out something, right? And when you try something new, obviously there are going to be some things which are not going to work, some things which are going to be so-called failures, right? So are you holding that against that person forever? That Ankesh, you tried this last year, did not work. See, every time you do something, our team is pushed back by 6 months. If I keep doing that, then not just you who will never want to do it again, others in the team also get this, signal that, oh, Ankesh tried something new. He is being castigated in front of the whole team. I don't want to be the next Ankesh, so I will also not try anything new. So you may say all these things about, yeah, we want innovation, but if your manager is behaving like this, then this is not going to work, right? So how do you change this then? By making sure that, there are some, metrics around number of new ideas that have been tried, right? And then you also track what has worked, what has not worked. But for what has not worked, you look at what have you learned from that, right? So that you don't repeat the same mistake. But the idea is not to focus on the failure part. Idea is to focus on what you learned from it, right? You can do small things. So every time I have a meeting, do I, as the convener of the meeting, actually ask for new ideas? Do I actually show people that, see, these are new things that I tried myself? When people feel, oh, Harish has called for this meeting, Harish is talking about this 10 new things he tried, out of which 4 failed. And he's, actually openly talking about it, means it is okay for me also try and, me also to fail, right? So let me also share the things that I have tried. That is how you really build that culture of innovation. But otherwise, what typically happens in most organizations that we see is somebody has, again, in that ivory tower, somebody has said, no, we should be innovative. It will be part of your values. But what you do on the ground is the same thing that you've been doing forever. Then how will you, innovate, right? That's how you have to change things on the ground.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would say yes to the example that Harish just gave. And a lot of one will just simply, come up and say, it's easy to say than done. But believe me, whatever examples and whatever matrix we talk about, learning from your own mistakes is the caveat that we have been brought in and grown up with. And we don't eventually do that because when we get into an organizational cultural or when we get into an organization, we get ourselves so involved with day-to-day activities that we actually forget. So when I got this book, Hope is Not a Strategy, I really wanted to ask this one question to Harish. Why did you, thought of a name, something like that? Because back in our mind, we always believe that one day this will happen. We have done our best. Hope this will work, but that doesn't work that way. And which is why, very few of us actually succeed because they have a strategy in their mind. And then after reading the entire book, I realized why did they name this book as Hope is Not a Strategy. So if you have not read it, I would encourage you to actually go through it. And if you're an HR personal or anybody who really wanted to, just groom themselves up to the purpose of an organization they are working for, and they're aligning themselves. I mean, it's just like a family. So if I am having a family, I would need my kids to learn exactly what I've learned. And that's how we, move on and, create better future for ourselves. And that's exactly how organizations do it. So if you've not read it again, I would probably encourage you to go read it. There are tons of examples. There are so many examples that you can actually calibrate on. You can learn from them. And in any point of time, you really want more answers, then Harish is just a call away. He's on LinkedIn. He's on other social media sites. So I'll give you the LinkedIn details. I'll give you his other details. So you can probably just get in touch with him, learn more from him. And I think it's a complete encyclopedia. I love the DRF framework. It has immense possibility to make the organization in a very transformative way to a successful organization. So, and if you have been through this entire episode, you must have understood why, again, I'm saying Hope is not a strategy being named to this book. And thank you again for tuning into this episode of the Collaborative Canvas. I hope you found our discussion as inspiring as I did. It is pretty insightful to understand why organization culture matters and why everybody still, struggle to come up to a place where everybody is inclined to the same purpose and the identity of an organization. So thank you so much, Harish, for bringing up so much of enlightenment to us. It's not an easy thing for anybody to control a large mass, but I think given the guidance you have mentioned in the book, if they can do about few of those work and create a certain matrix that can be measurable and can make the organization work much better the way they projected, say in a 5-year plan of them, I think that they'll help them being successful in their lives as well as in the organization. So thank you so much for bringing that enlightenment to us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ankesh. Really enjoyed having this conversation. And like I said, I'm going to pick up some of the terms that you used. I'm going to steal them from you, giving you due credit. But definitely, thanks a lot for doing this. It was a privilege to be on this show. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Harish. And to our listeners, if you have not yet subscribe to my channel, where I'm actually bringing so many people on the ground and they're talking so many things. I think it's all about I'm enlightening. So I thought, it should also go to you. And if it is inspiring, just subscribe to this channel, hit the bell icon so that you don't miss an update, and just stay creative every time. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you so much.